People suck sometimes, right? I mean, some of the best times of your life are spent in the presence of others, but some of the worst times in your life are caused by people, even if that person is just yourself. Now, I'm not here to spout some overspoken saying like existence is suffering, nor am I here to give you a step by step walk through to life. Listen, man, we're all just out here struggling in the best way we can. But I am here to explain to you why the social foundations we build in life are faulty at best and downright hurtful at worst. I'm not coming at this as a person who's never gone through this either. In fact, I've probably experienced many of the worst case scenarios you can imagine. It's why I can talk about it like I can. I've experienced it. It's not bad advice to lean on other people. Humans are social creatures, and to some extent, we do need each other. But what I've found is that we're told leaning on other people is the only way to get through our problems. That's a load of Sakurami togwash. We're sold the idea that through community we can conquer, but what happens when communities turn their backs on you? Humans turn our backs on the people who need their help the most. We wash our hands clean and then act surprised when the unspeakable happens like nobody saw it coming. They turn their back on anybody who doesn't fit into a standard social norm, anybody who dares to challenge a restrictive social regimen designed to squash individuality, and all the while claiming to be radically inclusive of all people and who they are. The truth is that people are only radically inclusive as long as you're part of the in group. We don't look for unity. We look for echo chambers. The world's hypocritical, but don't let the tyranny of the majority pull you down. Find the strength and peace to be who you are, who you were always meant to be, and let the haters hate, man. That's all they're good for. When we feel alone in the world, well, when we are alone in the world, we're told to find groups to give us place and purpose. When we're young, this group is usually found through schools or extracurriculars. As we grow, this group moves to our employment or some small clique within, usually. We all feel better when we can be a part of something bigger than ourselves. But the issue with most of the groups we find is that groups tend to be temporary. It's fine to seek comfort in a group of your peers, but there will come a day where the group has all gone its separate ways. Your classmates will move on to different corners of the globe. You'll find a new job, or worse yet, you'll be fired from the one you have. All the groups that we're placed in are temporary. You think, not my classmates, or not my job, then I challenge you to think of all the people who thought the same way and then were blindsided when it finally happened. After all, the group exists for the sake of the group, not the sake of the individual. Don't become so self-absorbed as to believe that any group needs you to continue. Take it from somebody who needed to be humbled. The group will always protect itself, and if you don't agree with the group, well, then you're asking to be cast out. Now, I'm not saying go along with whatever the group says. Just because a group exists doesn't mean it's valid or right. Think about World War II and the evils brought into the world through one of its main actors as a group. But don't become so attached to a group that can revoke your membership as to allow it to become your identity. Even the greatest bands in history tend to break up after a while for one reason or another. If the Beatles can break up at the height of their popularity, don't believe that whatever group you're in will be permanent. Don't be so arrogant as to believe the worst case scenario can't happen to you, because I promise you that it can. And if you live that way, it probably will. Life has this humor, if you really think about it, to cause us to face all the problems we think we'll never have to face. Think of it as an invitation to grow through strife, and not as life beating you down. Sure, life might be smacking you in the face with a wooden baseball bat, but life wants you to either move out of the way or take the bat from life's hands and use it. Don't waste the opportunity by just lying there and taking it. When larger groups fade, we tend to seek comfort from the people we call friends. As opposed to those other people we see in the world, these people are here through thick and thin. They are ride or die. That is, until they aren't. Not to say friendships aren't one of the most rewarding relationships a person can have. And with the digital world, you can stay in touch with anybody. But the part nobody wants to admit is that it just isn't the same. Friends come and go like patrons in a brothel or lovers in a bar. That's the nature of having friends. And no matter how tightly you cling or how much effort you put into it, it doesn't change that people change and move on to new pastures. There's an old saying, and I'd quote it if I knew who said it, but hey, human knowledge is human knowledge, right? Nobody is meant to stay in your life forever. The spiritual would say that people are in your life for seasons, and like seasons, people in your life will be hot sometimes, cold others, and sometimes they just can't make up their minds. But when the seasons change, do we just sit around and act like nothing's different? I mean, unless you're the guy who wears shorts in the winter, you can change the way you dress, can't you? When it's cold, you dress to feel warm. And, well, when people turn cold and leave you, turn inward to make yourself warm. Don't let the chills of the world keep you frigid. In the summer, when the sun's beating down on you and you're pouring the sweat, you make for some AC or a pool or somewhere to stay cool. So when people turn hot towards you and make you boil, seek a chill place to cool off. In the spring, when flowers are blooming and pollen's in the air and you just can't seem to go 30 seconds without having to sneeze, do you just sit around and mope until the pollen goes away? Well, I mean, I guess some people do, but most people don't know. You take an allergy pill and you get back out there. So when people spread pollen in the air that makes you sick, take the medicine you need and get on with it. That's not to say it's easy to make new friends when old ones vanish. If you're like me, it's one of the hardest things you'll have to do. I struggle with it on the daily, but it's not impossible. I'm usually a shy, quiet guy who'd rather keep to himself than face the humiliation that comes from others' rejection. When I try to make friends, I get ignored. When I join the conversation, I get talked over. And when I stick my neck out there, sometimes something comes along to chop it off. I find comfort in pets and animals a lot of the times, but they also aren't the end-all be-all of the world. However, it's not like I've never made friends. I've made plenty. Their time in my life was temporary, but just like most friends you make will be temporary. Don't cry for that which is lost, but rejoice that it ever existed in the first place. When our friends are gone, what else do we have? It comes down to our loved ones, the people we call family, or the person in our life so dear that we make them family. I'm going to start with blood relatives, but I'll hit on the other category next. Now, I said blood relatives since that's the most common way to look at it, but family doesn't have to be bound by blood. Family is simply the people who have surrounded you and supported you through your life. They tend to be semi-permanent fixtures in your life, and if you have a good one, they'll be there through whatever you're going through. And if you got a bad one, they'll leave you on your aunt and uncle's doorstep and you'll be shoved into a broom closet. However, even if they keep you in the cupboard under the stairs, there are still issues that come from family being the sole pillar of support in your life. Firstly, people don't live forever. Like that yogurt that sat in your fridge for too long, people have an expiration date. The people that are with us through life are there until they aren't. It's inevitable that people, even those who care about you the most in the world, will be gone one day. That's facing our mortality. That's part of the human condition, and there's not a better way to get around that. People grieve, sure. People look at themselves and ask how they could have spent the time they had with them better. They analyze their faults and they grow from the experience. However, the issues come when you start feeling you need to replace what they were in your life. You can't replace people, no matter how hard you try. People just aren't replaceable, no matter what your boss may tell you. Every person is unique and different, and we can merely allow new people into our lives. Even if you can accept people aren't replaceable, you're still not out of the woods yet. We despair when people are gone, like the dog who whines and sits at the door while their owner's away. We sit and wait for somebody to open that door. Sometimes the door opens, but other times we just have to move on while the door is shut. The second issue with family is that all families aren't created equal, and all families aren't full of the supported people that people need. Some families are dysfunctional. All the members live life only out for themselves. These are the families you don't see on TV, and unless you're watching something like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. These families don't have each other's backs, and they're only there when it's convenient. And with families like that, who needs enemies? When in situations like that, people tend to seek out other, more intimate relationships, and maybe that's not the solution either. Now, I've tried to explain how all these different groups aren't enough for us, but I still got a few more people to run through. Next, let's talk about the relationship that most people spend their lives pining after. The only relationship that people look for, the one. That's right, the relationship between lovers. I'll be the first to admit that I have no idea what this kind of relationship is like. But I have first-hand experience to tell you that it's not going to be enough. For no other reason than there's not a single person in this world guaranteed to even find somebody to share this kind of love with. People say everybody will find the right one, and maybe that's true. However, acting like everybody will find it only leads people to wait and then wonder why it's not coming for them. People still have to get through life when a partner isn't found and be able to thrive on their own, especially considering that nobody takes committed relationships seriously anymore. Lovers come and go, and since most people aren't really willing to commit to love in the regard that it needs to be, every single person needs to be sufficiently able to live in the absence of it and be single. Ask any person who was married 5, 10, 15, 20 years and then divorced how they got along afterward. If they were the person who left for somebody else, they just jumped into another. But do people who get left have anything left? Or do they just withdraw because they lost the only thing in life that they had beforehand? It's in these people we can see the greatest value in being single. When I say single, I also don't mean taking someone home from the bar every weekend. That's not being single. Let's get into a single night relationship every week. When I say be single, I mean to be able to sit in your own presence without worrying about other people. Since I have the relationship experience of an asexual sponge, I'm going to leave this here, but it does open the door to exploring one of the most important relationships we'll ever have. Our relationships with ourselves. Our relationships with ourselves is a different kind of relationship, isn't it? The other people in our life, even if they are permanent or semi-permanent, they aren't there all the time. We spend every waking moment with ourselves, though, and then some. In some ways, the self is a parasite we can't seem to get rid of, but it's also where some of our deepest prides, joys, and fulfillment comes from. We look to the outside world for validation, but really we need to look to ourselves for it first and foremost. People like to say that we have to love ourselves before we can love anybody else, and maybe that's true, but for anybody who's ever tried, it's not always easy to love yourself, is it? Loving yourself is like loving the dead-end job you work, in some ways. Sometimes it's really difficult trying, and a lot of the time you just want to quit. The boss is a dickhead, and you ignore what they say most of the time, and when you do that long enough, you face some serious consequences. Have you ever really tried to sit with yourself and see what comes up? Our own inner voice is a bigger critic than the rest of the world most of the time, and unlike everybody else, that inner critic doesn't pull any punches. They'll hit you where it hurts and kick you while you're down without even batting an eye, and then while you're laying there convulsing and numb from the pain, they'll pour a can of gasoline on it and strike a match. And you have to love that asshole. Sometimes putting faith in ourselves is very hard to do. Sometimes we can't even trust ourselves, but if you can't trust yourself, then who can you trust? If you can't confide in yourself, then where else do you turn? Is there somewhere to even turn at this point? It seems like there's nowhere to go. Well, that's where you're wrong. If you've followed along this far, it may seem like you can't trust yourself, or anybody else for that matter. Seems like I've dismantled faith in every relationship you can have in the world, but I say there's one more that you can forge. There is one relationship that will never fade. One more relationship that can not only heal you from your worst ailments, put together the broken pieces of your heart, but then can send you on your way in better shape than you were before you fell apart. I'm talking about Jesus Christ. I'm talking about God. So when it seems like the world has abandoned you, when your job leaves you high and dry, when your friends turn your backs on you and run away, and when your family isn't here anymore, when your lover runs off with somebody half your age, and when you just can't stand the critic in the back of your head anymore, turn to the only relationship that, if sought correctly, will never fade. Seek a relationship with the Most High, the All. Seek a relationship with the Divine. As even when the world denies you love, even when your friends and family deny you love, and even when you deny love to yourself, the love of God will still be there to pick you up. All you have to do is take the step to believe that God is there, to believe that something greater is waiting for you, and to believe that you are here for a purpose. So move forward, knowing that God is with you, as in Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And as said in Matthew chapter 28, verse 20, by Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior of the world. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age. Seek those who will never fade. Seek those who exist eternal, and rely not on the fellow sojourners you may find in this world. Only then may you find somebody who is truly enough. If you've made it to the end, thanks for watching. I'm going through a period of trying out different structures to see what works, so if you enjoyed, go ahead and smack that like button. If you have something to add, some complaint with what I said, or just some criticism you want to get out, leave a comment. And if you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead and subscribe. I've been Alex, formerly known as Alexander. I hope you have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, or night, and God bless. Peace.